This week it's time to look at a new game that has its roots deep in the history of retro platformers as Angelo reviews Yooka-Laylee. Meanwhile, Jonny goes head-to-head with one of the most powerful women in sci-fi, Tricia Helfer from Battlestar Galactica. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week it's all about the numbers. Firstly, 906,000. According to NPD, that's how many people bought Nintendo Switch consoles in the first month of the new hardware being on sale. According to Nintendo, that makes it the fastest selling video game system in the company's history, and according to just about everybody else, duh. It's not the world's fastest selling video game system. That honour still belongs to the PS4, which moved more than 4 times that many in a similar time frame, but it's still no mean feat, particularly when you consider that the new hybrid system launched in a non-traditional month and didn't get the handy boost offered by something like Christmas. Another number that's relevant here, 1.3 million. That's how many copies of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild were sold in the same month. Now, 460,000 of those were on Wii U, but there were 925,000 sold for Switch, meaning that yes, more people bought the game than the technology needed to play it on. Nintendo's not done with the impressive figures though. The company has released an extended list of games due out on Switch in coming months, and that prompted share prices to jump more than 5%. In total, that means Nintendo stock is up nearly 20% since the new hardware hit shelves back in March. Investors are impressed by both the first-party offerings, including Zelda, Mario, Splatoon and ARMS, but also by the third-party titles headed to the console, including Minecraft, 2 new Sonic the Hedgehog games and family favourite Monopoly. But investors and gaming fans alike are a little confused by Big N's latest decision, cancelling the ridiculously popular NES mini console after less than 6 months on sale. The company explains that the miniature system was never meant to be a permanent product. It had been planned as a holiday novelty that might sell a few units over Christmas 2016, but nobody expected it to be quite as popular as it ended up. However, retro gamers won't miss out completely if the rumour mill is to be believed. Sources close to Nintendo have suggested an SNES Mini may be on the way in a few months. In other news, Psyonix has announced that everybody's favourite game featuring supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars has reached more than 30 million players. The recently released retail version of Rocket League contributed 1 million sales or so to that figure. And that number is set to grow too, as Tencent confirms it is working with Psyonix on an all-new free-to-play version of Rocket League made specifically for the Chinese market. Remember, Rocket League launched for PC and PS4 back in July 2015 and is now available on Xbox One, Mac and Linux as well, while the developers work out what is required to bring the game to Nintendo Switch. In quick news, it looks like those rumours were correct, with Activision and Sledgehammer Games revealing plans for Call of Duty World War II set to arrive in November. It's a symbolic return for the franchise, heading back to the old Battlefront after nearly 10 years. We are promised a standalone co-op story as well as traditional multiplayer, and you can expect to visit some pretty iconic World War II locations, including Normandy on D-Day, as you work through a campaign that sounds like it'll be all about brotherhood. Call of Duty World War II is set for release on November 3rd.
Whenever I smell asphalt, I think of Marine. That's the last sensation I had before I blacked out. The thick smell of asphalt. And the first thing I saw when I woke up was her face. She said she'd fix my bike. Free. No strings attached. I should have known then that things are never that simple.
Delighting adventure fans worldwide, Tim Schafer's classic Full Throttle has been fully remastered and is available now for PC, featuring all new hand-drawn and 3D artwork. If you've not yet been caught up in this tale of motorcycles, mayhem and murder, now's your chance.
You know, Ben, we're broke.
Yeah?
And if some cash doesn't come our way soon, we're in big trouble.
Relax. I have a feeling something's coming our way. Something big.
That amazing looking project that put the Red Dead Redemption map inside the world of GTA 5 has been cancelled. Even though a number of Rockstar Games developers have admitted to being big fans of the mod, publisher Take-Two had a different opinion, slapping the modders with a cease and desist order, as well as instructions not to release anything relating to the project. Bucking recent trends, Ubisoft has announced not one but two new development studios, with offices opening in France and Germany later this year. Both studios will focus on AAA multi-platform development, with the new Berlin office working closely with the Settlers developer Blue Byte, while Bordeaux will collaborate with the publisher's four other French studios in Paris, Lyon, Annecy and Montpellier. Trademark registrations are always fun, and Bandai Namco recently filed for a handful. One of them was for Code Vein, which has since been revealed as a dungeon exploration type hard action RPG from the team behind God Eater. If that doesn't grab your attention though, this one might. Pac-Man Maker. Checking the calendar, the next Friday the 13th will take place in October this year, but Gun Media and Illphonic can't possibly wait that long, so the horror/fest of Friday the 13th, the game, will be arriving on May 26 instead for Xbox One, PS4 and PC. And finally this week, StarCraft. The original game, first released back in 1998, has just been patched to version 1.18. This is the first official patch for the game in nearly 8 years, and even though that's pretty exciting, there's something even better. As part of the StarCraft Remastered festivities, the classic game is now available to everyone for free. Go check it out and see what all the fuss is about. Someone who obviously knows exactly what the fuss is about, South Korean presidential candidate Moon Jae-in. As part of his campaign, he has just released not one but two custom maps for StarCraft Brood War. Sure, they're not the most complicated of designs, spelling out his name in minerals, but this is one of the best cases of knowing your audience that we have seen in years. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
Hey there guys, I am Johnny here at Oz Comic Con, and with me is Tricia Helfer. Trish, I've seen a little bit of something going on with your choice of works. You've been in Mass Effect, you've been in Command & Conquer, you've been in many other, that little Battlestar thing.
A little Battlestar, a little StarCraft, yeah, you know.
You seem to have a proclivity for the sci-fi. Is that a choice or is that just pure luck?
That's just pure luck. Plain and simple. It's, you know, I enjoy sci-fi, but Battlestar was really kind of my first, definitely my first series. I'd been acting for a year, so prior to that. So I think once you get, you know, and Battlestar was, you know, a cult hit, and it still continues to find an audience, you know, to this day, like 10 years later. So once you kind of get known in that, then I think that's certainly how I got into video games. The first game I did was Command & Conquer, and they you know, some of the producers were fans of the show, and they wanted number 6 in it.
Welcome to the Brotherhood of Nod. Our relationship with Tiberium has always been greatly misunderstood. Most people do not realize that the roots of our faith extend back several millennium, long before the emergence of the green crystal on Earth in 1995. An event foreseen by our great leader, Cain.
And then, you know, then you get to know voice directors and you start working with them and do other jobs. And so, but it's not like I seek out sci-fi, but there's some great stories in sci-fi. You know, I've also turned down a lot of sci-fi depending on what it is and if I didn't relate to the material, or, you know, I tend to not go for, like, you know, sharks falling from the sky. No offense, sci-fi, or no offense, audience, or, you know, giant beetles overtaking the earth, that type of thing. I tend to kind of veer away from that and go more for stories that intrigue me. Like when I went back and did Ascension on Sci-Fi, I really enjoyed the premise because as the actor, we kind of knew the hook.
Ascension is a lifeboat for humanity, taking with it mankind's best hope for survival.
I think as an actor, you want to do all types of different roles. You know, one of my favorite roles I did was playing a Texas Ranger on an ABC show called Killer Women. The show didn't make it very long, but the character was a lot of fun, you know, or playing a lawyer, or like right now playing Lucifer's mom, you know, the goddess of creation on Lucifer, and which also has a you know, a genre bent to it as well, but and based off a comic book. But I don't actively seek it out. It's the story and the people involved.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Mum.
Oh.
What do you think you're doing?
I'm taking your lead, son. Learning about your beloved humanity.
By dancing at my club.
Well, I saw the people on the table smiling, and I wanted to discover what they were so happy about.
Oh, is it possible it's the money that I pay them?
It's possible. But I have to admit, when I started dancing, rubbing up against the other humans, I got a tingling sensation.
Okay, that's enough. Excuse me, thank you.
Well, that's one of the things you seem to do as well, for lack of a better term. You tend to play boss-ass bitches in everything you do. Is that something that draws you to scripts as well?
It's not that I wouldn't want to play a different type of character, and I have. But I think, I'm 5'11". I have a, strong voice, and I think it's, I don't get the romantic comedies very often unless the guy happens to be 6'4", or I'm booked first and then they book somebody. Because not that you can't have a romantic situation with somebody a lot shorter. I did on Battlestar, but it's just not necessarily the norm in film and television. So that, I think, more so than what I try and seek out, because again, as an actor, you want to play all types of different roles. It's how people that are doing the hiring perceive me.
You're a synthetic woman. A robot.
I've said it 3 times now.
Well, forgive me, I'm having the tiniest little bit of trouble believing that, because the last time anybody saw the Cylons, they looked more like walking chrome toasters.
Those models are still around. They have their uses.
One of the things we talked about off camera was I got a bit of a dud shoulder. It's got a nice little metal plate running through it. From what I've heard, you're also part cyborg.
I have, cylon I prefer than cyborg. But, I have 4 artificial discs in my back, 2 in my neck and 2 in my lumbar.
Which come from, I believe I saw, doing your own stunts, which again, pretty badass.
Not that I haven't had some amazing stunt doubles for the things that insurance and production will not let me do. But yes, I do most of my own stunts. But that's not the only thing. It was growing up tall and thin, degenerative discs, being very sporty growing up, a car accident, somebody dropped a suitcase on my head in an airplane, like that kind of thing all adds up a little bit at a time. And then, but I had an amazing surgery about 8 years ago now, and it's been incredible. It's given me, second lease in life, basically.
The magic of wonderful science.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure once you heal properly, you will be saying the same thing.
I had to turn down a contract for the Leafs, so, no big loss.
Well, I don't think that's much of a loss anyway. Not for you, but the Leafs. Now, if you were an Oiler going up for the Oilers,
An organic operator cannot react quickly enough to changing circumstances or perform the necessary multitasking. This is a role that can only be filled by an artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, we are suspect.
Well, it might have something to do with how an AI almost destroyed galactic civilization, just putting it out there.
You've done so many different things. You're not just an actress, not just a voice actor. You're multiple things. How did you basically transition through all those stages?
I'm multiple things.
From what I've heard, multiple things. Model, even, if you will.
I modeled for 10 years, yes. High fashion modeling, doing, all the top runway shows, and lived in New York City, which it wasn't like that was a dream of mine, but I got discovered, as they say, by a modeling scout, and I thought, I'll do this for a year and see what, and it kind of took off, and I enjoyed it, and I got to travel around the world and meet some incredible people, and so it was a really great experience, and but then I... toward the end of my, kind of 8 years in, I was like, well, this is not that acting isn't as well, but acting has a little bit more range of age than modeling. And I thought, I need to use my mind more. I need to just, use my mind more. And also I was getting, into the mid-20s, late 20s. And so I started acting classes and loved it from the first class, and then studied while I was still working, and then moved out to LA, and a year later got Battlestar.
Listen to me. If you don't tell him what he wants to hear, he's going to find you out. And when he does, they're going to tear your head off and throw your body out of an airlock!
Pardon me. I haven't had much sleep recently, so...
definitely different career path and life path than I thought I was going to take. I thought I was going to end up I was interested in psychology, but which I guess is probably some of what I like about acting, right? Because it is really getting into the head of a character and figuring out why this person reacts the way they do, what their goals are, why they are the way they are, and how their mind works.
You seem to obviously focus a lot on Battlestar because that's what everybody loves and knows. I'm more of a Kerrigan kind of guy. That was something you brought to the role there that was rad. Like, what attracted you to Kerrigan?
They offered me the trilogy. I don't play video games myself, and that's not, I hate saying that, especially to, fans that play games, because it sort of sounds, I don't even know what it sounds like. I certainly don't mean it to be in any other way than I don't play games. I'm not technically very, technologically, I'm challenged. And, when I have free time, I have a lot of animals and I ride motorbikes and, everybody has their own thing. But I love being in them. I love playing them. And with StarCraft, I didn't know much going into it. So it was more just the character sounded cool. But, looking back at it, I think out of all the games that I've done, it is one of my favorite characters just because there was such an arc and such a growth, and then there really was a lot for me to play.
Commander. Jim? What the hell's going on up there?
When I did Mass Effect, which I love doing, but you go in and you read one line that comes up on a screen, and the first time you read it, you're recording it. So you know nothing really how it fits into the game, and you don't have anything to study and work on and that type of thing. So you really are just kind of flying blind, so to speak. But with StarCraft, especially toward the third game, I really could see her arc, and she had much more of a story that I could follow, kind of.
We live in a post-mascot platformer time in video games, but a new studio of veteran developers who shaped the genre is bringing it back. Yooka-Laylee is the spiritual successor to games like Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64, this time not beholden to any specific gaming platforms. Playtonic Games, the studio behind the new game, is filled with ex-Rare developers who are back to flex their platformer muscles. Right off the bat, no pun intended, Yooka-Laylee is cracking jokes and introducing silly characters. Yooka is a green chameleon and the character the player controls the most, while Laylee is a purple bat who sits atop her friend and has some tricks of her own. The way the game's mechanics operate is entirely reminiscent of Banjo-Kazooie, from the character designs to how they run, jump, swim and fight. In fact, I would argue that Yooka-Laylee feels too much like Banjo-Kazooie. The game's hub world, Hivory Towers, works similarly to the classic Spiral Mountain. Collect pages instead of jiggies, to fill up grand tomes instead of puzzles, and unlock new worlds to progress. In each world are different sets of collectibles, but the most common that players will seek are golden quills, instead of music notes, that can be spent to unlock new moves. There are also 5 different coloured Ghost Riders, instead of Jinjos, to find about the worlds. Even the music is remarkably similar to the style of Rare's pedigree. Veteran games composer Grant Kirkhope returns to score another soundtrack of Earworms, mostly of similar instrumentation and styles of the past games mentioned. Unfortunately, while the music is still great, it does begin to feel derivative when you've heard the umpteenth marimba melody for 100 times and could swear you'd already heard it almost 20 years ago. Honestly, I could spend all day talking about the similarities between Yooka-Laylee and Rare platformers, but it doesn't take too much away from the fact that it's still really fun. There's a lot to do and play around with that it's difficult to find yourself being bored in the new Ivory Towers hub and its subsequent worlds. In fact, the game's level design is different to its predecessors. Out of the 5 worlds to play in, excluding the hub, each can be expanded upon by paying more pages after unlocking it. Expanding a world extends its scope outside of its initial more centralized spaces, and further increases the amount of collectibles and characters to discover. While the small number of levels might seem like a downside, the fact that they can be expanded upon turns that number on its head and gives you more to do. Yooka-Laylee's cast is just as ridiculous as you'd expect. The premise centers around all the books in the world being stolen by Capital B, the bad guy, in a harebrained scheme to monopolize on the book industry and make his company filthy rich. His right-hand operative, Dr. Quack, was the head of his own company that was acquired by Ivory Towers and now spends his time devising new and scientifically crooked plans for profits. Dr. Quack is a rival of Dr. Putz, whose experiment went wrong and mutated her into a half-human, half-octopus. Dr. Putz helps Yooka and Laylee by offering them the opportunity to shapeshift into new forms and complete certain tasks. Then there's Trouser, a snake who's coiled in a pair of pants. He is a literal innuendo. Plus there's a myriad of other characters throughout the game. One character, Rextro, is a T-Rex who operates his own arcade and offers you the opportunity to play his games for play coins. These Rextro games are the only points in which Yooka-Laylee is multiplayer, and unfortunately, the experience is pretty much forgettable. Each arcade game is lackluster, and unless you're desperate to get your money's worth out of everything in Yooka-Laylee, you're better off playing something else with friends. There are some other aspects where the game falls flat. The game's camera is super janky, and there were way too many moments where I felt like I was fighting with it to look at anything useful. Plus, boss battles are often tedious, requiring super finicky maneuverability in environments that affect your movement too much, in my opinion. That said, the game itself runs really well thanks to the use of the Unity engine. Apart from a few minor hiccups here and there, Yooka-Laylee performs surprisingly well on the highest settings of my 5-year-old PC using an NVIDIA GTX 660 Ti card. While Yooka-Laylee spends perhaps too much time trying to relive the glory days, it's still approachable and fresh enough to give newcomers something to enjoy. It's still early days for the new Playtonic Games, and it's exciting to see some talent who helped define a generation are still passionate about where their roots lie. Yooka-Laylee isn't the perfect game, but it is a solid effort in bringing back the 3D platformer genre.
And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, we're checking out Guardians of the Galaxy twice over. We've seen the movie and played the first of the Telltale series, and now we want to tell you all about it. In the meantime, you can catch us at playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Also, if you want to support Player Attack, you can find us on Patreon and help us bring you the latest in gaming news, plus all of these wonderful interviews and reviews from the world of video games. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.